Imagine walking into your office break room and hearing this. Sarah from accounting is complaining about the new software update. Within minutes, 3 other colleagues have joined in, each adding their own grievances. But here's what's fascinating. By the end of that conversation, they're not just co-workers anymore. They've become allies, united by shared frustration. Now picture this. Kareem walks into that same break room, but instead of joining the complaint session, he says, "Actually, I think the new software is pretty efficient once you get used to it." Suddenly, the room goes quiet. What just happened? And why does Kareem now feel like an outsider? Dr. Petsy has been studying this phenomenon for years, and what she's discovered challenges everything we think we know about complaining. It turns out that when we complain, we're not just processing our own emotions, we're performing a complex social ritual that dates back to our earliest ancestors. Cosmo experienced this firsthand during a particularly stressful project at work. When he started complaining about impossible deadlines to his teammate, something unexpected happened. Instead of bringing down the mood, his complaints actually brought the team closer together. They began sharing their own struggles, and suddenly what felt like individual problems became shared challenges they could tackle together. The experiment in 2020, researchers at Stanford conducted what they called the Solidarity Study. They wanted to understand how complaining affects group dynamics and social bonding. They created artificial work groups and gave them challenging tasks. But here's the twist. Some groups were allowed to complain freely, while others were instructed to stay positive. Let's imagine Kareem, Cosmo, and Petsy were part of this study. In the first scenario, they're placed in the complaining aloud group and given an impossible deadline for a complex project. Kareem starts, "This timeline is completely unrealistic." Cosmo adds, "And we don't have nearly enough resources." Petsy chimes in, "Whoever planned this clearly has no idea how long research actually takes." But something remarkable happens next. After this initial venting session, the group doesn't spiral into negativity. Instead, they start problem-solving together. Kareem suggests breaking the project into smaller chunks. Cosmo offers to reach out to other departments for help. Petsy proposes a more realistic timeline to present to management.
Now imagine the same scenario, but this time they're in the Stay Positive group.
When faced with the impossible deadline, they're forced to respond with artificial optimism. "We can do this. Let's just work harder. Everything will be fine." The researchers found something surprising. These positive groups actually performed worse and reported feeling more isolated and stressed. What it means, Dr. Petsy's analysis of the brain scans revealed why. When people complain together, their brains synchronize in a process called neural coupling. The same regions that activate when we experience empathy also light up when we hear complaints that resonate with our own experiences. We're literally sharing the emotional load. But here's where it gets complicated. The study also revealed a darker side of complaint-based bonding. When Kareem chose not to join the complaint session about the software, he wasn't just staying positive. He was unconsciously signaling that he didn't share the group's experience. In tribal terms, he was marking himself as an outsider. This explains why some people seem to complain constantly in social settings. For them, complaining isn't just emotional regulation, it's social currency. Each shared grievance is a bid for connection, a way of saying, "I'm like you, I understand your struggles, I belong in this group." Cosmo noticed this pattern in his friend group. There was always that one person who seemed to have an endless supply of complaints, but when he paid closer attention, he realized something. These complaints always matched the mood and concerns of whoever they were talking to. It wasn't random negativity, it was sophisticated social mirroring. Real-world application. So how can you tell when complaining is building healthy connections versus creating toxic dynamics? Dr. Petsy identifies 3 key patterns to watch for. First, healthy social complaining leads to action or acceptance. When Kareem complains about traffic with his carpool buddies, they either find alternative routes or accept that traffic is part of city life. But toxic complaining just feeds on itself, creating what researchers call complaint spirals, where each person tries to top the previous grievance. Second, healthy complaining includes the complainer in the solution. When Cosmo complains about his workload, he's also asking for advice or support. Toxic complaining positions the complainer as a victim with no agency, expecting others to fix their problems or simply absorb their negativity. Third, healthy complaining has boundaries. Petsy noticed that her most emotionally intelligent friends would complain for a few minutes, then consciously shift the conversation. Okay, enough venting. Let's talk about something good. Toxic complainers never make this shift, turning every interaction into a dumping ground for their frustrations. The research shows that people who engage in healthy social complaining report stronger friendships, better workplace relationships, and higher overall life satisfaction. But chronic complainers often find themselves increasingly isolated as people begin to avoid their constant negativity. Here's the paradox. Complaining can bring us together or drive us apart, often depending on a single factor, whether we're complaining to connect or complaining to control. When Kareem, Cosmo, and Petsy complain together about shared challenges, they're building bonds and solving problems. But when complaining becomes a way to manipulate others' emotions or avoid personal responsibility, it becomes a relationship poison. This brings us to our final question. If complaining is both natural and social, why do some people choose to break the cycle entirely? What happens when someone decides to stop complaining altogether? And most importantly, when does choosing not to change something actually become a choice to accept it? In our final episode, we'll explore the choice to change and discover how understanding your relationship with complaining might be the key to understanding your relationship with life itself.